Recording in progress.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Discussing everything about the afterlife and spirit world. Coming to you all the way from Ireland. It's
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Tipperary for an hour. Thanks for joining me and thanks for listening. I hope you got some benefit from our episode last week. It's my hope that you get some value from every episode and not just, obviously, the talking is very important and the answering questions, but I want to give some value and hopefully that everybody will have a takeaway at the end of every session. So I wanted to start off tonight where I left off last week. It is night time here in Ireland. It is 10 p.m. And I got so busy talking and answering questions that I didn't actually finish off talking about how I got into full-time mediumship. And it really was an accident. It was never a conscious decision that I made. As I said, I'd always been doing readings from when I was a little girl. I was well able to read people. And can you let me know if you can hear me? I see we've got one or two people online. If you can just let me know that I'm coming through okay, because I can't hear anything on this end. I told you last week that I was getting an ear infection. I ended up losing my hearing for 5 days, so I'm only just back into everything. So if somebody could just give me a thumbs up and let me know that you're hearing me okay, it would be brilliant. But anyway, as I said, that thank you, Mary, I appreciate that. As I said, it was quite accidental when I did get into working full time as a medium because I had done some traveling. I'd lived abroad and, it wasn't something that I did while I lived abroad. And when I came home to Ireland, it started to get stronger. I think it's not necessarily that I was in Ireland that made it stronger again. It was more the fact that I suppose you're comfortable when you're at home, and I wasn't on the move every week as I had been when I was traveling around. So I just felt drawn to read for people again. And so I was just reading for friends and friends of friends and stuff. And, just on a Saturday afternoon or whatever, it wasn't anything major. But one night I went to see a medium because I always had a huge interest in it. And I went to see a medium, came to our town, and she was in the local theatre. So, I was just mesmerized watching her on stage, but there was a couple sitting in front of me, in the row in front of me, and I could feel their anxiety the whole way through the first part of the show. So when the show, we took a break for people to powder their nose and whatnot, and they were getting ready to go, and I just tapped the lady on the shoulder, and I said to her, "Don't go." I said, "Your son is here, and he is planning to come through, but she doesn't seem to be hearing him." And the woman just looked at me and she started crying and she said, "Who is it?" And I told her a little bit about this boy and she started crying more. And she said, "He's not our son. He's actually our grandson." She said, "But we raised him from the day he was born. He was like a son to us." And so he gave me some information, some bits and pieces that he wanted to tell her. And she was so happy. They really felt after the first half, and I've been to shows, and I'm sure a lot of people listening will have been to shows that they didn't maybe get a reading from, and that can be really disheartening. But if you imagine that a medium is on the stage and there's a whole audience of people there that you want to you want to read for everybody, but it's just not possible. But for whatever reason, there was a message that this couple needed to get from this young man, which they got that night. So anyway, they stayed for the second part of the show. And when the show was finished, And God bless the lady for this. I should always be thankful I never got her details. But when the show was finished and the medium on stage left the stage, this lady just stood up and said to the crowd that if you want a reading, you need to go to this girl standing or sitting behind me. She said, she's brilliant and she's just given us a reading here in the seat. So people started coming up to me asking me for my number. So I started to do a few readings on a Saturday afternoon, which got booked up. So then I started to do a few readings on a Sunday afternoon, which got booked up. And then I cut my workday down to 4 days a week in my full-time job. And then I cut it down to 3 days a week. And I ended up then after maybe even only 4 months, applying for a career break at work to see would it take off and would it work, because I was booked solid for 3 or 4 months at that point. So that's when I went into it full time. Okay, so it really was accidental. It wasn't that I made a conscious decision that this is what I was going to do. I did obviously end up putting up a Facebook page so people could contact me easier and stuff like that, and that I could, put out information for people much easier. So, social media is great for interacting with people. So that's my story really about how I got it. It was never a conscious decision made when I was a teenager or in my 20s. I was in my 30s before I started to read for people in that way. And I was glad of it too, because I'd got to live my life. I had, I wouldn't say a lot of life experience necessarily, but I had lived abroad in a couple of different countries. And I suppose it gave me more life experience that I could draw on, because mediumship is all about your experience. You can't, you can't help somebody if you have no experience of it, because you have to have reference points in your mind for spirit to use to get messages across to you, even if that means that you watch a lot of junk television. Okay. I don't get to see telly anymore now, because things are just always so busy, and I always have something on. But back when the kids were small, and I used to have like Emmerdale on in the background or something, and you get a lot of things from watching even soap operas. So for people that will be listening to this from the States, Emmerdale is a soap opera that's on every evening, 5 evenings a week here at this side of the Atlantic. And I don't get to see it anymore, but I remember like a storyline years ago. There was a young couple that were married, and they were only after having their first baby when the lady was diagnosed with cancer, and she ended up passing away. Okay. So that gave me a reference point for a young woman passing away with cancer. Okay. So if I'm connecting with a young person that died through cancer, especially a young woman, that can be a reference point, from my mind that they can use. So the more information you can get into your mind, whether it's through reading books, watching television, actual personal experience, travel, etc., the better. Okay, because that's what spirit use as the reference points. Okay, so tonight, what I wanted to discuss and bring up is I wanted to talk about the different ways that spirit can communicate with us as humans, okay? Because we're human, we live on the earth plane, and spirit live on a different plane without the human body. So they have different ways of connecting with us. So in the same way that we as humans, we have several different ways. We have more than just one way of connecting with each other. We have several different ways. So obviously the main way is voice and language, okay? Because we can talk to each other, but then again, not everybody can talk, okay? So they use their hands and sign language or whatever. So we've got voice and language, we've got eye contact, we've got facial expression, we've got hand gestures, we've got body language, we've got lots of ways that we can connect with each other, okay? And it's the same in spirit, okay? So they don't have a physical body. So all that eye contact, that voice box is gone, they can't do hand gestures or body language. So they have to have different ways of connecting with us. But we do have 7 main ways for that to happen. And I call it the Clairs of Mediumship, okay? Because they all start with Clair. Now, Clair means clear. And you will see a lot of these words when you're looking for mediums. Okay, because they'll all tell you some fancy word like clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, clairguscience, or whatever it might be. Okay, and we don't expect you to know exactly what that means. Okay, because we live in a world of Google, so it gives you a word you can Google. But a lot of people don't understand these terms, and it is important. We don't expect you to know them by heart, but it's important to have some idea of what that means, when you're booking to see a medium. And I'll tell you why, okay? The reason for that is because you know the person that you're looking to connect with in spirit, okay? You know who they were, you knew their personality and the way that they communicated with people in life. That doesn't change, okay? So if you had somebody in life that was very shy and didn't speak to strangers and only opened up to the people that were very close to them, they have the same behavior in death, okay? So they're not going to come through all talkative to your medium, who is, let's face it, the medium will be a stranger to your loved one. So if there were shy strangers in life, they're going to be a little bit shy coming forward to the medium in death too. Because if they came forward and, if they came forward all chatty, the first thing you do is turn around and say to me, that isn't my loved one at all, because they wouldn't have said boo to a stranger. Okay? So they're going to come through in a way that you would recognize them. So assume that the same way that they communicated in life is the very same way that they're communicating in death. And, they're always going to come through as well in a way that you'll recognize them. So, I do connect with a lot of babies or, toddlers or young children. I think it's just part of my own experience from having lost children, and working with young people in education, that I do communicate a lot with younger people. And if, for example, somebody had lost, maybe they had a stillborn baby, for example, okay, God forbid, but that person goes through the rest of their life thinking of that child as a baby. Okay. And, physically, we as humans give birth to babies because we can't give birth to an adult. But babies are completely developed in their mind. Okay. They just need to grow. So not always, I don't always see them as babies. They do grow up in the spirit world. So I, when they're coming through to their mothers, they will always come through first in the format of a baby, because that's exactly the way the mother would always think about them. She never thinks of a grown-up daughter or a grown-up son. She always thinks of the baby that she lost. Okay? So that's the way they will tend to show themselves. So it will always be in a way that you would recognize. Okay? So, don't think, oh, maybe they've changed because they're in spirit, or maybe, they say things a different way, or they communicate a different way. They don't. They're going to show you always themselves as you would recognize them. Okay, so that's why we as mediums tend to put on our bios how we communicate with spirit, because it gives you a good chance of choosing the best medium to connect with your loved one. So, for example, if we go back to the scenario I was given a few minutes ago about a shy person, okay, so if dragging conversation out of a person in life was like dragging blood out of a stone, well, there's no point in you going to a medium who can hear spirit. Okay, there's just no point, because they're... Oh, I don't know what I did here. Because I was moving something on the screen and I lost the whole thing. I can still see everybody. Okay. Because they, they're still going to be like drawing blood out of a stone. Because as I said, your medium is still a stranger to them. Okay. So, you're not going to want to go to a medium who can hear them. You will be better off to go to a medium who can see them or who can feel their energy. Okay? And in the same way, I have an aunt, most beloved aunt, Mary Lou. We called her, obviously her name was Mary, but we always called her Mary Lou. And she passed away, God love her, at the age of just 61. And I was very close to her because when I worked in London, I lived with her for a while. Now, Mary, as she got into her late 50s, she absolutely hated her photograph being taken. She hated that she had like some wrinkles beside her eyes, and she hated that she'd put on a few pounds around her waist and tummy. And she was still exceptionally beautiful, but she couldn't see that. So she hid from a camera. So we have very few pictures of how she looked towards the end of her life, okay? So I know that if I'm to go to a medium to connect with her, she's not going to want to show herself because she didn't like the way she looked at the end of her life. Okay. So, Mary could talk for Ireland. She would talk to anybody. There was no such thing as a stranger. She was a real Irish woman, okay? She drove a big double-decker red bus in London. That's what she did for work. And she would talk to everybody and anybody the same as they got on and off the buses. So I know that if I were to go to a medium who could hear her, I would get an absolutely great reading from her. Okay. So it's about choosing the correct ability that the medium has and, connecting that with the one that you love that you're looking to connect with. Okay. So let me go through, I've 7 of these. Okay. I'm sure you'll probably get other mediums that'll say that's not one or that's not right or whatever. But in my experience, these are the main 7 and the ones that the majority of mediums would use. The very first one that I'm sure everybody's heard is clairvoyance. Okay. Everybody whispers about people and they go, oh, she's clairvoyant. Okay. And we know that this means that somehow this person connects with spirit in some way, but we don't always exactly know how. Okay. So break down the word. So there's 2 words there. One is clair and one is voyance. So clair means clear. All of the words we're going to talk about tonight start with clair. It means clear. So clair means clear and voyance means seeing. Okay. So you've got clear seeing. Okay. Clairvoyance means clear seeing. So that is somebody who sees spirit. Okay. They can see them. They physically see something. Now, I say to people at the beginning of readings that it doesn't necessarily mean that someone's going to appear beside me or beside whoever I'm reading for, during the reading. Spirit do show themselves, and I see them a lot. Okay, when I was a little girl, I was just plagued with them, and as your logical mind kicks in as you grow up, you tend to push them away a lot. But I do still see them, but in fleeting motion. So let me explain that. For a spirit to manifest a vision of how they looked when they were alive, that takes all of their energy. Okay? So they would only be able to stay for 30, maybe 40 seconds and show themselves to you. Then they're exhausted and they're gone. Okay? So you get to see them for a few seconds and bam, they're gone. And you haven't got the opportunity to ask them a question because they put all of their effort into manifesting the vision. So I don't encourage spirit to do that because I want to talk to them. I want them to give me information so that I can give evidence to the person that I'm reading for that this person is still alive. Okay. And that's all we're doing in readings is giving evidence. We'll talk about this in future episodes. But so we want them to talk about, things that they've seen going on around their loved ones since they died. Because if they can tell me about little things that have happened since they died, well then that shows that they're still around. Okay? Like I read for somebody recently whose spouse passed away very, very suddenly. And just before he passed, they had got a new car, which they loved. Okay, let's face it. They waited till the kids grew up, paid all the college fees, and then went out and bought themselves a new car. So one of the things that he showed me when he started talking to his wife was some damage on the front of the car. Okay, so I asked her, had she crashed it or bumped into something? And she said no, but just the day before the reading, she had noticed a mark on the front of the car, like a stone chip or something. And she felt it was really noticeable and she was really, really angry about this. Okay. So this is what the person was trying to tell her, that, even though he wasn't physically there, he saw her get angry, and upset about the mark on the front of the new car. So he was able to show that to me. Okay. He showed me her noticing some damage on the front of the car and getting angry and upset all at the same time. So he didn't show me a complete vision of himself. What he did was he put like a little video clip into my brain. And that's how they communicate, through seeing. Okay. They might show you themselves. Some people do, some people don't. They'll show you a little scene of something they remember, maybe something that happened during their lifetime, while they're given evidence that this is in fact me. They'll go, oh hell, this is me. Do you not remember the time we both got on the swing drunk or something? And they'll give you some memories that you can connect to so that you know who exactly this is. And then they'll also talk about like that things that they've seen since they passed. And that's to give you evidence that they're not actually dead, that they still see what's going on around you. Okay. So they're pictures and thoughts that they can put into your head, but I will still see people, especially when I'm on stage and I'm doing a stage show. Okay, so you'll have an audience in front of you and you'll be on the platform and you're looking down at the audience, or you're giving a reading to somebody in the audience, and then all of a sudden you'll see somebody maybe at the back of the room or at the side of the room, and they're pointing at somebody in the audience, and it took me a minute with the first time I did it to realize, oh, this person isn't actually here. They're actually coming from the spirit world. And so, if they need to show themselves to get your attention, they absolutely will do. Okay. And I always remember doing a show I was doing a stage show down in Kerry, in a hotel down in Kerry. And some of the staff came into the back of the room when they had their break, listening to what was going on. And actually one of the girls, her dad came through, and he just walked in really confidently into the room and put his arm around her and pointed at her. "That's my girl," he said. So I was able to give her a reading in her break from her dad as well. Okay, so at stage shows is a huge way for me to see people. Also at night time when I'm ignoring them. Okay, so they can show themselves in that way too. Basically to try and get your attention. But it's always kind of fleeting because it takes so much energy for them to show themselves. But if they need to, they will. Okay, so clairvoyance is clear seeing. So, like that, if you had somebody in spirit who was very shy or anything, that it's a good one to go for a clairvoyant, because they'll be able to see the person. The person will be able to show them little pictures or little video clips of things that they remember or things that they saw. Okay. So the second one I've written down here is clairsentience. Now I put clairvoyance and clairsentience as the first two because I'm both clairvoyant and clairsentient personally. So they're the ones that I always talk about first. So we know that clair means clear. Okay. So clairsentience. So sentience is, it means clear senses or clear feeling is what it is. Okay. It's the ability to feel the energy of spirit. So what does that mean? So it means that you feel like the spirit did or does. Okay. One of the main triggers for me is always, one of the first things that I connect with them is how they died. Okay. And that's just due to personal experience in life. I lost a family member who was 31. He crashed his motorcycle and passed away following the accident. And I got very caught up with how he felt when he died. What was it like for him? How did he feel? So this became my entry point. I was only 15 when this happened. So this became my entry point for the spirit connection. How did they die? So that's something that you feel from spirit. I'm not medically trained, so I can't always say, I don't know. I've watched a few medical things over the years. They've got a cardiac arrhythmia. I don't know, is that the right word? But I can't say things like that, or that they had, I don't know, kidney failure. I can't diagnose anything, but I can say to the people, okay, I get a real tightness across the left side of my chest. Okay, a heart attack. or I get a real heavy feeling to the back of my lungs. For me, this is always like, something like cancer, COPD, TB, something like this. Okay. So, or I can say I get a pain, over in my hip area at the back. So, that would be something like maybe a kidney disease or something like that. Okay. So there's various different things that I can feel from people. And it's just really, I suppose, experience over the years, okay, of what I've learned from spirit, because I have no medical training at all. So the clear feeling. So when somebody is reading and they're going, I feel this from them, or I feel that from them. Again, it's a good way for you to connect with somebody who would have been shy, who wouldn't have talked a lot, because as the energy of the spirit gets closer, I can feel what they went through. I can feel what they're feeling right now. Okay. So I did a paranormal investigation once. Well, I've done several of them, but I just remember once that I did in a place called Loftus Hall. Okay. And it's a very famous haunted house here in Ireland. And I felt the presence of a man. We were in one of the rooms. It was the middle of the night. It was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Everything was dark. We just had the night lights and stuff. And I started to feel the presence of a man. And I started to feel his anger and his bitterness and all this kind of stuff. Okay. So I was able to say to people what I felt from him, and what I felt he wanted to say, and what I felt that he was, he had felt or said or wanted to say during his life. And as it turned out, they had records actually on that gentleman. So Mary is just saying that she did a lock-in in there, and I happen to know Mary because Mary works with a paranormal group here in Ireland, so she would have done a lot of paranormal investigations. And she says very, very angry spirits in Loftus House. There's a huge story. If you Google Loftus House, there's huge stories about the devil having visited there and everything. It's actually recently been sold, so at the moment they're not doing investigations there, so we don't know if the new owner is going to restore it for somewhere that's useful, or if they're going to reopen it as a haunted house again. We're going to have to wait and see. But that's where the feeling comes from. So if the spirit feels happy, I'll be happy. I'll be smiling like a Cheshire cat. If the spirit feels sad and emotional talking to their loved one, then I'm going to start crying. If they had pain when they died, I'm going to feel that. Okay, so I feel all of the emotions and the physical feeling that they would have felt at the point of death, or even during the reading, the different emotions that they go through. So that's clairsentience. It's that you feel whatever the spirit felt. Okay. Now, the next one I have down is clairaudience, an easy one for you to figure out. Okay, so clair means clear, and audience means hearing. Okay, so clairaudient is someone who hears spirit clearly. It's the ability to hear sounds or audible signs from spirit. So this would be the one where people say, oh, I heard somebody call my name. Okay, or I heard footsteps on the stairs, all that kind of stuff. That comes from clairaudience. Now, I say to people, be logical. We know that the person who has passed does not have a voice box or a voice anymore. So the things that we tend to hear from them are generally memories of sounds, if that makes sense. Okay, so they're like replaying something that they would have said when they were alive. So even when they're calling you your name, it's like a replay of them having said that when they were alive. I love hearing people's laugh. That's a big thing for me, because when Kevin died after his motorcycle accident, he was such a person that had a great sense of humor, and he was always playing tricks on people, and he had this hearty laugh that came right down from his stomach, and for years after he died, I could hear that laugh clearly all the time. So when I hear somebody laugh when they're talking to their loved one, it just brings such a warmth to me, okay? And hopefully it does to the people that I'm reading for as well. And I'm trying to describe the different laughs, the throaty laughs, the belly laughs, the sniggers, whatever way that they would have laughed. It's a big thing. It's a big thing to know that people are happy and settled in the spirit world. There's also other kinds of audible signs. So when I used to have people here at my home for readings years ago, I have a little office here in my home, and a lady came to see me one day. It was the afternoon, and it was bright out, obviously bright outside, but it was a lovely day, which, Ireland, it's normally raining, but it's actually a beautiful day outside. And we started reading for her, and somebody came through. And then all of a sudden, now my house is on a flight path. It's on a flight path. You see a lot of flights coming from the States to either Shannon Airport or going across to Europe. They tend to fly across our house. So you see a lot of jets like way high up in the sky that you don't even hear so much. So you wouldn't necessarily hear airplanes a lot. So we were just sitting there talking away to her husband, and next thing, the two of us ducked because it was like a plane was actually flying into the house. The sound of it was just that loud. And I looked out the window and I couldn't see a plane. And I was like, that's so strange. I said, that never happens. And I looked at her and I said, I don't suppose your husband was a pilot, was he? And she just looked at me and she went really pale and she said, oh my God, he was a pilot, And, he was able somehow to give us that sound so that I knew that there was a connection with airplanes. Okay, so you can hear all kinds of things. Some of the best conversations that I have with my loved ones in spirit is through getting them to knock on the wall, asking them questions and getting them to knock. I love sitting in my conservatory, when the house is quiet, which it rarely is, but sometimes when it's quiet, and I can... you'll find that mediums find it very hard to read their own loved ones in spirit. The reason for that is because if I'm reading your loved one, I'm giving you information that I just didn't know because I didn't know your loved one. I didn't know that they took a shoe size 12 or, that their legs were so short that they couldn't find pants to fit them or that they wore green braces every Friday and pink socks every Monday. I didn't know those things about them. But those are all things that I know about my loved ones that are already in spirit. So it's harder to get that information for myself. So I just ask them questions. So whether I do that with the pendulum, but what I've been doing a lot more recently is just getting them to knock out the answers. So some days I'll sit in the conservatory with a cup of tea and just ask the questions and ask them to knock twice for yes and once for no. Okay, so you can try that with your loved ones and see do you get an answer. Give them a minute or two, okay? I've worked up enough energy with my lot that they can come through quite quickly. But, don't expect them to knock it out straight away, okay? It might take them time to work up to that energy. But, again, that's a sound. It's a sound that they're giving, okay? So that's clairaudience, okay? So clear hearing. So claircognizance, okay, and I'm surprised I actually pronounced that right because I always pronounce it wrong. So clear is clear and cognizance is knowing. So that's clear knowing. So this is intuition, okay. So there's two levels to intuition, and this is where it can get tricky, okay. And I don't want to get too much into the mechanics of things for you on this one, but we can read people psychic. I'm a psychic medium. So as well as the mediumship readings, I also do what would have been called in the old days fortune telling. We call it psychic now, where we're looking at what's coming up in the future for somebody. And, sometimes, people will come to me and say, oh, I don't feel that I got, that I visited somebody and I don't feel that they got a connection with my loved one. Sometimes there's two reasons for that. Sometimes you may have gone to somebody that's wrong for your loved one. You might have gone to, someone, a clairaudient, but your loved one in spirit is shy and therefore they're not talking, okay? And then it could be the reason that some people that are psychic mistake what they do for mediumship. Because you can connect with somebody on a psychic level and read what's going on in their life and what's coming up. And then you can connect psychically with them in a different way to find out from them, who's in spirit who's in spirit for them. Okay. So So there's two levels of the psychic work, and it's important that as mediums, that we keep our energy high enough to use our intuition to feel the energy of the spirit. So it's a bit of feeling in this as well, but it's more using your solar plexus. It's the knowing of something. Sometimes you just know something and you don't know why you know it. So let me give you an example. And Jane isn't on tonight, but she's normally on, and I know she doesn't mind me using this example. Jane shares a lot of her story on my page of her son and his battle with cancer. But I read for Jane. I didn't know her personally at the time, and I did a reading for her and her mother, who, God love her, has since passed to the spirit world also. And, I read for them, and at the end of the reading, and sometimes I say something and I don't even know why it came out of my mouth. And I forget it as soon as it comes out of my mouth, because sometimes it's not really me who's talking. I do a lot of trance mediumship as well. And as it happened, I bumped into Jane in a supermarket. I was in a supermarket in a town not far from where I live. It's in Cashel. And they have a big superstore there. So sometimes I'll drive over there to do a big shop. And that's where Jane lives. And she saw me in Tesco's and she came up to me. And she's very understanding. She said to me, you won't remember me, but you did a reading for me, 2 or 3 years ago, whatever it was. And I said, I know your face, but I would not remember the reading. And she said, that's okay. But she explained to me. And she said to me, at the end of the reading, you turned to me and you said, someone in your house is sick. And she said, you told me that they would be on antibiotics and the antibiotics wouldn't help. And that when they went back to the doctor for a second lot of antibiotics, that I wasn't to allow the person to accept them, that I was to insist that this person was referred further. Okay? So I said to her, my God, did I say that? I said, because I'm always so careful not to give medical advice because I'm not qualified at that. But I do have a spirit guide called Francois that I work with, when I do healing, which I haven't done in a while, but I do spiritual healing as well. And so I had said to her not to accept a second lot of antibiotic. And I said, have this person referred to hospital. There's more going on there. It's not just, and I'd said to her, it's not just this person's sinuses. There's something more. So I think she thought I was a bit cuckoo when I said that to her, but she took me at my word. And she said it was about maybe 2 or 3 months after the reading. Her son, who was 17 at the time, came in to her and he said, ma'am, I went to the doctor on the way home today. He said, because this sinus thing hasn't cleared up with the antibiotics. And he's after giving me a second dose of antibiotic. And she said, at that moment, the penny dropped and I heard in my head, she said, every word that you'd said to me. And she got straight on the phone to the doctor and insisted that her son be referred to get this checked out further. And the doctor said to her, no, this is just a stubborn infection. And she said, no, it's not. She said, I was told this would happen and I want him referred. So the doctor took her at her word and referred him. And I can't remember, and I will ask Jane again. It's a very complicated name, but it's a specific type of cancer that her son had. Okay, he did have a cancer. And they were able to start treatment. Now, Michael did pass away. He passed away 2 weeks after his 18th birthday. So she did lose her son. But she said she threw her arms around me in the middle of the supermarket and she said to me, she said, Sandy, I got a year with my son that I wouldn't have got if I hadn't met you. Okay. So, to this day, I don't even remember saying those things to her. But nonetheless, I did. It was just a feeling. Okay. It was just somehow that I knew that this was going to happen. Now, I've done it, to a couple of family members as well. I wouldn't say I diagnosed my mother's cancer because I'm not qualified to diagnose anything, but I felt it. I'd been working in Canada and I was home after about 2.5 months or something. And we decided we'd go off for the day and spend some time together. And the minute she sat into the car beside me, and I felt the chest, and I remembered that she'd had some kind of a chest infection before I'd gone away, and I said to her, "Ma'am, have you still got that chest infection?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm on like my third lot of antibiotics or whatever." And I just said to her there and then, I said, "Ma'am, that's not a chest infection." I said, "That's cancer." And she said, "It's not." And I said, "Ma'am, it is." And she had to fight tooth and nail to get referred to an oncologist. But she did, and she was diagnosed with endocrine cancer in her lungs. And she's still fighting it. She's had a couple of tumours removed, but she's still here, alive and kicking, thank God. Poor ma'am. But the thing is that I don't know how I knew those things, but I just did. So it's just a clear knowing. So if you've ever just sat beside somebody and you knew something about them and you don't know why you knew, that's your clear cognizance. That's just your intuition telling it to you. My grandmother that used to read the tea leaves, she always said to me, "Listen to your gut, girl." She said, "It'll never put you wrong." Okay? So she really believed in her intuition, which I do too. And people that live, I don't know, do they have a program called Catchphrase over in the US? But it was like a program where you'd see, a drawing and you had to guess what film or what scene or whatever that they were trying to depict, a bit like charades through memes. And so we call mediumship catchphrase mediumship, and it's really say what you see, say what you feel, say what you hear, say what you think. Don't question it, just say it. Okay, so that's your clear knowing. Okay, so the next one I've written down here is Clair Alliance. It's not Alliance like the insurance company. It's ALIENCE. Maybe I'm mispronouncing it. So Clair means clear, and alliance maybe is smelling. Okay, so the ability to smell scents that have symbolic meaning. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So this actually is a common one, and sometimes when I'm on stage I ask this question because people always say that mediumship is a gift, and I say it's an ability. I disagree. It's not a gift. It's something that everybody's able to do. So I've often asked audiences when I've been on stage, I say, who here has ever randomly smelt, like their grandmother's perfume or the smell of cigarette smoke? When there's actually nobody around, maybe, smoking a cigarette, or, obviously the grandmother wouldn't be around or whatever, all those kind of things. Or, here in Ireland, maybe the smell of a turf fire, or a particular brand of aftershave. Okay. So, everybody's hand in the audience goes up. Everybody's hand, because this is one I think that everybody really connects with, because there's always some kind of a smell that we relate to somebody. Okay, so for example, my granddad was in the Irish Defence Forces, very proud of his time in the Irish Defence Forces. He was in the military police down on Spike Island during the Second World War. And all his life, even as an older man, when I was a little girl, he was always, pristine. The shoes were polished. The hair was sleeked back. He used carbolic soap. So you'd smell like Brill cream and carbolic soap whenever he was in the room. And, I still get that smell when I know he's around. A lot of people maybe get smells of like lavender. A lot of our, old grandmothers would have bought this lavender perfume or drawer liners in lavender. It's a smell that a lot of us can relate to. Or even the smell maybe of a dish that your mother or your grandmother used to cook, like bread and butter pudding or banoffee pie or something like that. Okay, so all these different smells that they can give you, that can come in. Okay, so it's a really good way to know who is with you, because sometimes we feel the energy of spirit around us, but we find it hard to kind of figure out exactly who it is. So concentrate and see if there's any smell. Has, the scent in the room changed? And this is what I always tell my students, when I'm teaching the mediumship is, if you're looking to connect with somebody, if you're looking to practice your mediumship, make sure you haven't sprayed the house with loads of air fresheners, or you don't have sage burning that's, the smell is all over the place, because you want to allow them to come through in a gentle way for your first connections. And the little smells that come through can be really gentle, and you want to be able to identify them. Is it a cigarette smoke? Is it a cigar smoke? Is it a pipe smoke? Okay. Are you smelling a turf fire? Is it an apple tart or, a cheesecake that you can smell? Is it, is it men's aftershave or a woman's perfume? What are the smells that you're getting? Is it the smell of flowers? Maybe somebody was, really into their gardening, and the smell of fresh flowers might be relevant. So you have to be able to identify the smells around you. So I wouldn't say nobody would base a full mediumship reading on, clairalience, but it's a great way to identify who exactly it is. I've often been on stage where you have two people that are quite similar, like, you might be down in Cork or something, and you've got two farmers coming through, and they were both maybe 63 when they passed, and maybe they both had a cancer, and they both wore braces and all this. But then you'll ask them, okay, there's two people here, and think you might be for them. So you'll say to them, give me something else. And then all of a sudden you might get the smell of pipe smoke, or of Brill cream, or of carbolic soap, or something like this. And then you'll be able to say to them, okay, maybe who was in the army, or who always used carbolic soap, or, who smoked or whatever. And it'll be the difference in knowing who exactly it is that you're connecting with. Okay, so that's the smell. Then you've got clairgustance, okay, or clairgustance as I tend to call it. So clair obviously is clear, and then gustance is taste. Okay, so this is a clear taste, the ability to taste without putting anything into your mouth. Okay, so again, great for the people that used to bake, maybe, or smoke, or even, something that I've never had, thank God, any kind of oxygen or, the pain relief that you can have through gas. I've never had any of that. So, there's a taste, a particular taste. I don't know, does oxygen taste? Because actually I've never had it. But there's a particular taste that Spirit give me when I know that someone has struggled with breathing and they've had to have oxygen towards the end of their life. So you'll taste that also, okay? Maybe if somebody drowned, I might sometimes taste the dirty water or feel like there's water in my mouth. So that's part of the tasting as well, okay? So there's a lot of things that you can get in there with the taste. Again, it would be complementary to, or secondary to, if you like, a reading maybe based on the clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, or whatever. But it would be a good way to know certain things about somebody, okay? And, I've read in many different countries, and, not everybody passes away peacefully with their family all around their bed. And, unfortunately, I've met people who've died horrific deaths, maybe after accident or been murdered, and sometimes I taste blood in my mouth, and that would be very relevant for the person who's come for the reading to know that, what, she is with my loved one because she knows that there was some horrific event that made them bleed into their mouth, okay? And the last thing that I'm going to talk about, and I hope I pronounce this right, is clairtangency, okay? Basically, it's clear touch. And this is what we call psychometry, okay? So it's the ability to sense energy by touch, okay? And I love this one, because when I found that I could actually do psychometry, I felt very relieved. And when I started reading for people, it was something that I leaned on a lot. I used to say to people when I started reading first, because I'd be very nervous. I never wanted to let anybody down. And I used to say to people, just in case we have any issues connecting with someone, have a photograph or something in your bag, or something that belonged to them. The reason I used to say photograph is because when I used to say to people, bring along something to the reading that belonged to the person, oftentimes people would bring like an ornament that their granny had sitting in a glass case for like 60 years. Okay. But in that 60 years, they probably touched that physically 4 times. So it's not what you're looking for. What you're looking for when you're looking for an object is something that someone has touched every day. So maybe a watch that they wore, a chain that they wore around their neck, earrings, a belt, whatever it is. Maybe their mobile phone because they always had it on them. Okay. So something that would have been on their person for a vast amount of every day. And the reason for that is because you can get their energy from it. Then you can also get somebody's energy from a photograph. And I remember reading an article in I think it was National Geographic, some years ago. I was only, a teenager maybe. And there was a story about a tribe that had been discovered, I think it was South America. And this tribe had never made contact before with the outside world. Okay? And of course, everybody was arriving on to this tribe and they wanted pictures and to take videos and see how they live and everything. But this tribe believed that by taking pictures of them, that that we were taking away part of their energy or part of their soul. So they didn't want pictures taken of them. And while I don't believe that it takes away part of their soul or that it does any damage to anybody, there is a part of our energy in every photograph of us. Because by holding someone's photograph or someone's belonging, I can feel them. I just feel like I'm them. I just get the sense of feeling, are they male, are they female, are they young, are they old, did they die suddenly or was there illness, how do they feel now, who are they with, all of this kind of information. It really helps to bring through the energy from the spirit world. Okay. So psychometry it's called. Now you have to be careful with psychometry. I happen to know because I did a lot of my training at Arthur Findlay College in London. And in the UK, there's what's called a Witchcraft Act. Okay. So there's certain things you're technically not allowed to do because it's against the law. So one of those things is psychometry. Okay. So you're not allowed to conjure up the spirit of somebody by holding an item, but you can hold the item and then put it down and then start channeling the spirit. Okay, so you're not technically doing it while you're holding on to the object, you're doing it after you put the object down. We don't have that here in Ireland. Okay, we don't have that kind of regulated Witchcraft Act thing. So it's not disallowed over here or frowned upon. And I have found it great through the years. Now, I have to say, I've read a lot in Canada and the States. I don't know what the law is over there, but I've used psychometry a lot there too, doing one-to-one readings for people. So I love a bit of psychometry, I do. Okay. If you're someone who's looking to develop your spirituality, if you're in an antique shop or something, just stop by an old piece of furniture. It might be an old bed or an old dressing table or, something old. They tend to even sometimes have things like, old walking sticks and stuff. And just put your hand on it for a minute and close your eyes and just close out everything else that's going on around you and just see, what do I feel from this object? Okay. And you're doing psychometry. Okay, because that's exactly what it is. It's just trying to get the energy from the item. Okay, you're using that energy in order to channel the spirit, to get the connection, and to make it, I suppose, make it easier for you to connect with somebody. Especially for somebody, it can be very difficult to connect with spirit for somebody who maybe worked as a nurse or a carer or something like that, because they tend to have a lot of spirit coming through and they're going, you were so good to me, and thank you so much for giving me dignity before I died, and you get all these people popping in and out. So it can be harder sometimes to get through all those acquaintances, if you like, and get through to their own loved ones. So psychometry is a great way for that. And I would say to people, whether they're coming to a show or coming to a reading, pop something in your handbag. The first reading I did the first stage show I did in my hometown, God, it's a few years ago now, but I always said that, and I was interviewed on the radio beforehand. It was a local charity, and I said to people, pop something in your handbag that'll bring the spirit energy with you. And I was really nervous, obviously, before going on stage. I prefer to read in front of a stage of strangers, or an audience, should I say, of strangers, rather than an audience of people that might know me, from when I was little. And so I said to people, bring something. And I was sitting backstage, all ready to go on, and I was really nervous. I was just close to being sick. And I said, God, please, someone, if you're here, just let me know you're here, that I'm not going to walk out on that stage and be on my own, okay? Because even though you just see the medium, we've got a lot of people around us on that stage waiting to talk. So at that point, a woman stepped forward and she said to me, "You're all right, love." She said, "You'll be fine." She said, "My daughter is in the front row and her name is also Sandy." She said, and she has a little white teddy bear in her handbag that I gave to her when she was a baby, and she's kept it all these years. So I said, thank you so much. So I went out on stage and I was sweating buckets. It's really hard. And I just said, okay. So I explained, I said, you're not really supposed to bring people on stage with you. You're supposed to make the connections on stage. I said, but I was absolutely just shitting a brick backstage, thinking that I wouldn't connect with anybody. I said, and this woman came to me and she's a mother and she told me her daughter Sandy is here in the front row. I said, we're both Sandys. I said, and you have a little white teddy bear in your bag. And this girl in the front row, she just went, oh, like that. And she goes, my name is Sandy. And she picked up her handbag and she pulled out this little white teddy bear. And she said, I've had this since I was a baby. Okay, so it's the energy from the item. It's the item that this woman was using as her connection on that night. Okay, her daughter felt that by bringing this teddy bear with her, that it was bringing her mother's energy. So she wanted to acknowledge that to her daughter. I know you brought it. And another lady was in an audience one night. I believe it was in Carlow, and someone just said to me, okay, will you shout there for Marie? She's got a picture of our dog in her handbag with her. And this, I believe it was her mother or father. I can't remember exactly who, but someone saying she's not here to talk to me. She's here to talk to the dog. So they told me what dog it was and the name of the dog. And I said, have you got a picture, of that dog? And she said, I do. And she pulled it out and she showed everybody, and we were able to connect with the dog as well. So this is an example of using physical items to bring through spirit energy. Okay, so we've gone through a lot this evening. So just to recap: clairvoyance, clear seeing; clairsentience, clear feeling; clairaudience, clear hearing; claircognizance, clear knowing; clairalience, clear smelling; clairgustance, clear taste; and clairtangency is clear touch, or as it's more commonly known as psychometry. Okay, so we have a lot there. They're the main 7 ways that spirit can get information across to us, or that they can help us to make that connection with spirit. So I hope that there's a lot of value in what we've discussed this evening. Okay, I promise I won't always be talking about stuff that will take up the full hour, and that we will get a lot of questions asked. But I see Mary's been sitting there patiently, God love her. And thanks so much for joining in, Mary. And we will talk about paranormal at some stage, and we'd love to bring you on the call and tell us about some of your experiences, because having done a couple myself, it's just a completely different way of connecting with spirit, and you get so much from them. You really and truly do. You get so much from them in that reading, and or in that experience, I suppose, of the paranormal, that it's amazing. Okay, so we'd love to hear something. So she's just telling me that she's wrote everything down and she would truly love to, and we'd love to hear them. Okay, so we'll do that in one of the coming weeks, and I'll give you a heads up beforehand so that you can be sure that you're on. And I'm going to leave it there for tonight, okay, because it's quite late and I've talked a lot. But thank you so much. And for anyone who's listening, Even if you're listening to the repeat, it's a week and a half away, but I'm doing a free online workshop on the 19th of September. So just different ways of bringing mediumship into your everyday life. Okay. So if you go onto my website, sandybyrne.com, and click on free webinar at the top in the menu, and you can just register there for the webinar, and you'll be sent all the information before it starts. All the times and everything are on there. There's a link to search for your own time zone if you're not in Ireland. So thanks, guys, for listening to this. And we will do episode 3 next week, which I believe is the 15th of September. And thank you so much for listening. The replay, and even the replay of last week's, it's on Spotify and Alexa and TuneIn. It's on a few different channels. It's been submitted to Apple as well. So hopefully in the next week, it will be published on Apple Podcasts. So you can always catch the replays of the shows. But if you want to join me live, you have to join me on Wednesday evenings, Irish time. And you can ask me any questions that you wish. Guys, until next week, I want to say thank you. And I'm going to love you and leave you. And I'll try and get this replay up as soon as possible for anybody who wasn't able to make it live. Take care, guys.
Discussing everything about the afterlife, the spirit world, coming to you with all my rent. It's Sandy.